build him. We have the technology. We have the capability to make
welcome $6 billion man.
I'm going to try to pull it all together today, so just bear with me. But I got the news that you were meeting today, and then I saw the email requesting people to come dressed as a superhero. I see that some people followed the directions. It was kind of presented a challenge. I wanted to go for it. If I had a little bit more time, I would have pulled it off. First thing that came to mind was Aquaman. I was going to try to figure out how to attach the shark to my right leg, just to go in with that game. But why am I here? Just to share my story, a story that's similar to many of you. Many of you know worse situations, and some know some challenging situations that may not be this bad. But my story. I began teaching in 1988. I taught elementary school, I taught middle school, and I was really happy as a classroom teacher. Decided to get my admin degree, I think out of frustration. I just felt that there was a disconnect. The principal really doesn't understand what life is like in the classroom. So I made the mistake of getting my admin degree. I coached all levels, all the way from youth through high school, but on February 9th of 2004, Columbia High School had a school shooting, and I'm not sure how many people are familiar with that. A student that had a lot of trouble, was getting suspended a lot, had some challenges. He was in the special education program, and people not really making a connection with him. He was out of school. Our high school was under construction. He came in through one of the entrances where the construction was taking place, went into a bathroom stall, assembled a gun out of his backpack. The school bell rang, students came into the bathroom, they saw the feet underneath the stall, did typical high school student stuff, kicked the door open, and the kid was sitting in there with a shotgun. The current principal tackled that student in the hallway. The gun went off and shot one of our special education teachers in the calf. He was also my assistant football coach at the time. He's now currently a central administrator in Skodak schools. He was treated and released. We showed our empathy. We gave him an orange jumpsuit and told him to start wearing that to school as part of his uniform. But as a result, I wound up going into the high school. I was pulled out of the middle school and asked to go into the high school, and I was in charge with school discipline. At that point, we averaged about 400 students per grade, so we had about 1,550 students at the high school. And when you think about 1,550 students, my day consisted of me dealing with probably 70 students. They were just reoccurring. They were the same 70 students. Wasn't really what I had expected, wasn't where I saw my career going. And days I left the building saying, I can't believe they pay me this much money to work with 70 students. And people would be like, do you work at the high school? I do. Do you know my daughter? I don't know. Does your daughter get in trouble? If your daughter gets in, So I really was looking for something a little bit more. The very next year, the assistant principal position came open, and I decided, well, if I'm going to make the move, I'll make the move. I'll stay in admin. I applied for the assistant principal's position at the high school. With an opportunity to do some curriculum, with an opportunity to make some changes and connect with more students. And I was then dubbed as in charge of safe and orderly environment, also known as discipline. In 2007, when I finished the school year, first of all, lessons learned during that time. I learned some really valuable lessons that I know are true, and I'm sure you know are true too as an educator, but the importance of making real meaningful connections with students. That's important. And I understand all the pressure, and I'm currently a school principal. I understand APPR. I understand the Common Core, and to be frank, I really don't give a damn about APPR and the Common Core. I do, but it's not on my front burner. My front burner is taking care of kids. And the best way to take care of kids is to make meaningful connections. Taking the time to and meaningful is the important part, not just the hello and the casual hello, but really kind of making that connection. And it takes time. It takes time, and it takes effort. The importance of being present, always being available to students. Another thing that I learned that's really important, my office door never stayed closed. And I made sure that no matter what I was doing, when the bell rang and classes were going to change, I was in the hallway. where I chose to eat my lunch, I ate my lunch every day in the school cafeteria. And I find tables where I could find those students that seemed to be isolated. I'd sit down, have lunch, and engage in a conversation. And then I'd follow up those conversations. The power of positive encouragement. I mean, think about things, and I'll give you some examples personally of positive encouragement. Just when I thought I couldn't handle anymore and I was going to break, just the power of some positive encouragement. The power of being proactive and observant, engaged. That's what they really talk about, being engaged. Think about how much we can do with a proactive approach. And really being present. And being observant and really kind of intervening and being that important person before something escalates to something that may be unfortunate. And the absolute critical importance of total wellness. And that's what I'm talking about. When I say I don't care about APPR, I do. I can't control the number that the state of New York gives our teachers. I can't even make sense of it. I've called them to have them explain it to me. They couldn't explain it to me. But I have to sit with teachers and say, New York State says you're a 2. Sorry, hard to explain when in our world when 98% of your students are scoring 3s and 4s on the New York State test that you still came out to be a 2. I don't really know. So it's kind of irrelevant. I know it's important to individuals, but really what our job is, and when I think about educators, no one went in this for the wrong reason. Everybody went in this for the right reason. And that's really taking care of the total child. Next step, July 1st, 2007, I became the principal of Belltop Elementary School. Very excited. I went to the middle school. God bless any of you that are in the middle school. I don't even know what the hell happens there. And then going to the high school and then going back to the elementary. Really had to adjust my thinking. Getting a sense of the school's culture. Every school has a unique culture. Trying to figure out where am I going to fit and help support this school. And then, excitement, first day of school. The jitters, the nerves. We did our traditional family picture, before everybody went off to school. My oldest son was starting at middle school. My youngest son was starting in kindergarten. So before I went off to school, we took the family picture out front. I made it 1.1 miles from my house, and I was involved in a car crash. That's right out of the newspaper. Not what I expected. My son was at the end of the driveway that year, and I left early enough where I pulled down to the end of the driveway, and I said, John, you want me to give you a ride to middle school? Because he's never ridden a bus. My wife's a kindergarten teacher, so my kids always got in the car and went with my wife to school. And I asked him, you want me to drive you to school? You never rode the bus. Those 7th and 8th graders might tie you under the seat or give you wet willies. You can get in the car. He didn't want to get in the car, thank God. I made it a mile down the road, and unfortunately, I was involved in a head-on car collision. The driver of that car was arrested 3 days prior to driving into me for heroin. He was arrested, he was released. He since then has been arrested 17 times, still in jail. He was a student that I remember from the middle school that was in the classroom across from me that quite often used to get sent over to me because the teacher across the hall couldn't handle him anymore and needed a break from him. Well, I found him. I spent over 100 nights in Albany Medical Center. I endured 14 surgeries. Took quite a toll on my family. My family had to deal with it. The recovery was a little rough. I was a very active guy that all of a sudden had 2 broken legs and a ton of internal injuries. However, the benefits, the takeaways, I'll tell you what, I look at it as a positive change. Refocused me, redirected me. I had a greater, stronger sense of what was important. Things that used to bother me no longer faze me, almost to the point that annoys my wife. It annoys my wife. The people in the car that would give you the middle finger and you wouldn't know why they gave you the middle finger, the old me'd be like, pull over, pull over, pull over. Now I just wave to him and say, I'm sorry, have a good day. It just doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. I've found ways to kind of make other people's day a little bit brighter. I find somebody that's having a real simple, this is self-healing. If you're having a really, really, really bad day, dig in your pocket, dig in your purse or your pocketbook, pull out some loose coin, stick them in the soda machine in your staff room. You wait to see how excited somebody is to find free change in a soda machine. It'll change your day. It'll literally change your day. There's a strategy for you. Helps you out a lot. But I returned to work. And I really kind of bounced back a little bit. I had 2 broken legs. I had a ton of stuff going on. I had an infection where they put rods in my legs, and then they had to take the rods out of my legs. I had external fixator. I looked like Frankenstein going to work in the elementary school with skewers sticking out of my leg. Kind of worked my way through it, got back in shape, was active again, did some jujitsu. I was officiating at the high school level. This past winter, started not to feel so well. I was coming home from work, and even the nights where I would have a staff meeting, I'd sit down and I'd fall asleep. And I said to my wife, I was like, something's up. I'm just not feeling great. And I was officiating and had some leg discomfort, and put it off. And then finally said, I probably need to check this out. So called the doctor. Doctor came in or called me over and said, Jim, just come over. I'll give you some cortisone. Gave me some cortisone shots. Said, if it doesn't feel any better in a couple days, give me a call. Well, it didn't feel any better. I eventually called him up, and he did an MRI, calls me up on the telephone, and he's the doctor that did most of the 14 surgeries from the car accident. He said, come on over. So brings me in a room and pulls up the MRI, and like I could understand what I was looking at, and he's like, I think you may have a tumor. I think you may have cancer. I'm going to send you to an ortho-oncologist. So in April, I went in and they did a biopsy of my tibia, and I was informed that I had an osteosarcoma. So I had quite a few choices. They talked about limb salvage, and they talked about percentages, and I had a greater percentage of survival, 70% survival rate if you amputate the leg. So about a month ago, I had my leg amputated in Boston, Massachusetts, and I've done 3 chemotherapy treatments, which my chemo treatments are 3 consecutive days. Day 1 is a 9-hour day of having toxins injected into my system, and day 2 and 3 are similar, but not as long. And I say this story, it's very hard to come up here and say, look at me and look what I've done. I had no choice, especially when I have somebody like Rick sitting in the room. The point of the story is that what I have learned is when I'm sitting in these waiting rooms are packed. I sit in a treatment room over at New York Oncology Hematology, and the room is 3 times as large as this room, and there's not a chair open in the place. And it spares no one, from young children to old adults, and there is a point to that. And I'll kind of pull it together, but this is a recent picture. I tried out my first prosthetic a couple weeks ago, tried out a second one yesterday, and I'm trying out a third one on Friday, and then I'll figure out how to use the thing. My friends helped me quite a bit. These are examples of support. Someone gave me a suggestion for a Halloween costume. Someone got a badge made for International House of Pancakes IHOP. They thought I'd be a perfect person for IHOP. And of course, the Christmas story with the famous leg. So, I do have a lot of support, but the facts, sadness and grief are normal human emotions. Normal. Depression. And the point is that you as educators have no idea what's walking in your door. Every day. You have no control over who comes into your rooms, and you have no idea what they're dealing with outside of that classroom. So the Common Core, yeah, it's great. It's great. But unless you're addressing the total wellness of the child, teaching them anything, especially the Common Core, is going to be that much more of a challenge. Depression, a loss of interest in things that used to bring pleasure. Untreated depression can lead to serious complications that put your life at risk. 350 million worldwide suffer from depression, leading cause of disability. No single cause of depression, chemistry, hormones, genetics, affects 1 in 10 Americans. Those are the facts. 80% of the people that have symptoms of depression are not receiving any treatment at all. The number of patients diagnosed with depression has increased approximately 20% over each year over the last 10 years. Mental illness, 1 out of 5 adults. 20% of our youth, 13 to 18, suffer some sort of mental illness. 13% of our youth, ages 5 to 12. 50% of those students diagnosed with a mental illness don't complete school. 90% of those who die by suicide were found to suffer from one mental illness or more. Those are the facts. Our students come to us with many needs. We don't get to choose, we don't get to pick. Quite often, we may not even be aware of it. Things such as illness, poverty, abuse, depression, mental illness. I mean, we do some good things where things are identifiable. We know that somebody's not bringing food to school. We notice that they're not changing their clothes, that poor hygiene. And we Band-Aid those things up. We send them to the nurse. Sometimes we have change of clothes. And I know that all of you could probably identify people that would just choose to say, it's not my job. Or not address it because it's too much of a challenge. How many times do you see inappropriate behavior, if you want to call it bullying? Some of it is bullying, some of it is just unacceptable, inappropriate behavior. How many times does the teacher or the adult, doesn't have to just be the teacher, just turn it off? It happens all the time. I see it. I saw it at the high school. Things in the hallway. No one wanted to take ownership over it. No one wanted to address it. But these are just a list of some of the things. You know, the truths. We choose our profession. I've been doing this for 29 years. I have the same energy that I had my first year. And some days I really don't have it, but the job requires me to have it. It's too important not to have it. I'm not fabricating things. I'm not assembling things. I'm working with real human beings. You know, I have terrible days. When I walk in that building, that job deserves the very best of me. We have responsibilities as educators and as people. We are role models for others. You know, I have a unique approach dealing with people and dealing with staff, and I'm very fortunate to be in the building that I'm in now. But I was in a very large building at Columbia High School. I learned some tricks to engage some people, and I've learned some tricks just to ignore them, knowing that I cannot change that individual. So I gave my energy towards the people that I could. Those are important things. We need to understand what is of real importance. Academic pressure, real challenge. Real challenge. We cannot ignore the importance of a child's total wellness. A student's wellness must never take a back seat to the academics. It can't happen. Get to know your students and your families, making meaningful connections, asking questions, listening to them, observing them, caring for others, kindness. You know, I say it all the time, and I'm sure you've heard it. Try kindness. If it doesn't work, try it again. If it doesn't work, try it again. Try kindness. Courage. You know, people struggle. We must have the courage, the energy, and the commitment to promote and establish a better place for others. Address things of concern. Too easy to ignore, to blow off, or to downplay. How many times have you seen, or have you ever seen a colleague just downplay something that they observed? You know it's wrong, you know it's inappropriate, but they downplay it because they don't want to have to make that phone call to the parent. They know it's going to be confrontational, or it could be controversial. So it's easier to ignore it or to downplay it than to really address it, to truly address it. Perspective often comes from learned experiences. Be aware of how we spend our time, how our students are spending their time, how our own children are spending their time. What we are filling with their heads. Things on TV, things that are socially acceptable because they see them on TV and it's all that they know. You know? I mean, how many kids go home and really have a meal where they're eating dinner as a family, talking about their day? I mean, the TV has become the best babysitter in America. And it's hard to find things that are on TV that are of value. that tremendous peer pressure of how I should look, how I should dress, how will I fit in. Kids have some serious challenges. I would not want to go back to have to redo middle school or high school. Just wouldn't want to do it. A recent personal experience happened to be my 51st birthday. An educator from Saratoga Schools. My dad and his dad worked at General Electric over in Schenectady. They were good friends. My dad came home, I was in 4th grade. My father said, "How would you like to go see a wrestling tournament?" I said, "Sure." Time with my father. Next thing I knew, I had a pair of gym shorts, and I was wrestling in that tournament with no clue how to wrestle. Getting absolutely pummeled. Thank God it was double elimination, so I only had to get pummeled twice. And then my father looked at me and said, "Wasn't that fun?" I think I may have damaged part of my frontal lobe, and for some strange reason, I said, "Yeah, that was pretty fun." So we did it every Saturday. And I quite often traveled with this guy, Anthony Belli, who went on to win the NJCAs, went on to University of Oklahoma, wrestled at University of Oklahoma, newspaper clipping. But on September 17th, a father, a husband, a father of 2, ended his life. Some people that remained close with him, and I would see him every year, a couple times a year, and always upbeat. For me, I would never know. Always smiling, always happy. Hard to find anybody that would have anything bad to say about this guy, but he had some internal struggles going on. And that's recent, and it just happened. So it begs the question of what people are really carrying around. When some people are short with me, and some people are rude, I step back and I say, maybe they're dealing with something that they're just having a hard time handling. And rather than being confrontational, I kind of let it slide. It just doesn't bother me as much. Jason asked me to talk about some recent sweetheart moments, and I could think 2 that really clearly popped out. My first one, of course, is my wife, who has never missed a medical appointment. Whether it was the car accident, spending 100 nights in Albany Med, or whether it was going for chemotherapy, sitting for 9 hours, hooked up to an IV, or going to physical therapy, or trying to figure out how to walk with a prosthetic, she's never missed an appointment. On the days where I've been so sick from chemo, and I said, I just can't do it. This is it. Can't do any more chemo. She's the one that's made me get up, get in the car, and go finish those treatments. So just refocuses me and pushes me. She's kind of the glue in our family. Really, during the time of really being sick, there's days that go by that I'm in bed. We have 4 children, and she manages all those things. So a real sweetheart, a hero for me. Another incident that occurred really recently. Once I lost the leg, I wanted to go into hibernation. I just wanted to stay in my house, not go anywhere, wait and get fitted for a prosthetic, figure out how to walk with the prosthetic so I had a real minimal limp in my gait, and then I would go back out. Our oldest son, who is a junior in college locally, he's at RPI, he called and he needed something. So my wife and I got in the car to bring him over what he needed, and we hadn't seen him in a little bit, and he wanted to go get an ice cream. I was trying to figure out a drive-through ice cream so that I could go get the drive-through, but there was no way I was going to say, no, I can't do that. I'm going to go spend time with you, and because I wanted to, but also because my wife would have killed me if I said, no, we're not going to go. So we went to Friendly's, and I started to be in a full sweat. This is really my first time out with the prosthetic. Really nervous, afraid to be out, and we walk in, and there was a family of 4 inside the door. And you talk about appearance. They were probably the dirtiest 4 people that you could find in Troy, which that's one hell of an accomplishment. And she looked at me and she said, I'm proud of you, honey, you keep going. And I stood up straight and I felt a little better. And I just kept staring at the lady the whole time we were there. Those words made that much of a difference for me. And for me, that's a reminder that, I can pass that on, you can pass that on, and the little things that you think may not mean too much, they may mean everything to someone. They may change that person's day, they may change that person's year, they may change that person's life. How you think or how you think is important. What you think about is just as important. And the choices that you make, the things that you do and say, or the things that you don't say and choose not to do, those things really matter. My advice to you is to choose wisely, try kindness. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And by no means do I think I have the market cornered on dealing with challenges, but I've had quite a few, and working through one right now. So as a group of educators, I wish you the best, and know that you are the difference makers, and you really can make a difference. So thank you for your time.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. We have the capability